It's been a great year for Reform. They won 4 million votes at the general election, they returned 5 MPs to Parliament, and only one of them has done jail time for assaulting a partner. There's clearly a lot to celebrate, so I've come to Party Conference to meet the members. What are we doing here today?
What am I doing here today? I'm going to the Reform Conference.
You've come a long way.
I've come from Aberdeen in Scotland. I think it's very important to be here and turn up to give the party the support it needs, as I think Britain is on the verge of collapse if something doesn't change soon, because I don't think the infrastructure can cope with the, shall we say, the ever-increasing population. That's the problem.
How's your Reform Conference been?
It's been
The ever-increasing population, yeah, it's getting very old as well. You need more workers. That's the problem.
an amazing experience. First conference I've ever been to, anything like it, and it has been amazing. So many people that all think alike, and it's been so friendly, and it's been good fun as well. I think fun has been the key.
So I'm very patriotic. I see that our country has Judeo-Christian values, and that is one of the reasons.
What do you mean? What do you mean by Judeo-Christian values? There's no such thing as Judeo-Christian values. That is not a thing. You can tell this person's been watching Jordan Peterson. Yeah, they just mean white. Like, they just mean white when they say Judeo-Christian values. And even then, we've not even had Christian values in this country for like 45 years. We're incredibly secularized. Talk about Judeo-Christian values in this incredibly secularized country is nonsense. It's complete nonsense.
Reasons fundamentally why we've prospered throughout history. If you look at the amount of inventions, there's a great stat that was put out: 51% of all inventions, were invented by British people. But if you look at the triangle, there's a big triangle which goes between
51% of all inventions by British people. Yeah, I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that's definitely a real fact and not just a complete nonsense someone's pulled out their arse. 51% of all the inventions have come out of Britain. Claim that 52% of the world's inventions originated from Britain is an exaggeration and not supported by comprehensive evidence. While Britain has been historically significant in terms of innovation, especially during the Industrial Revolution and in various fields such as science and technology, attributing a specific percentage like 52% to its contributions lacks empirical backing. You know what? It sounds very Trumpian. We've had all of the inventions. You've never seen so many inventions like we have in Britain. You have so many inventions. We have 52% of all of the inventions in the world ever. We have so many great inventions here. Box wine, true. Now that is an excellent invention.
Probably it had to be Nigel's speech, but Anne Widdecombe was fantastic as usual, wasn't she? She's just an amazing speaker. Yeah, I think it's probably Nigel's speech. Even his farewell speech actually was pretty good. Yeah, you left there with something in your heart. I think he leaves a part of him on the stage for all of us when he speaks.
We've got a diverse amount of history coming in, Anglo-Saxons, Celts, the Romans. We've got a huge amount of history. We've got Chatsworth House. We've got all of these beautiful, amazing buildings, yeah? So that's our pillar, our history. We brought the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was made in Manchester, yeah? It was made in Manchester. I went to the Manchester Museum.
Yeah, I'm sure the people of Manchester were really happy with the conditions during the Industrial Revolution. Don't get me wrong, the innovations were important, but maybe it's worth reading some critiques of that to understand what it did to the people who had to work in the factories in that time. All of the children that died. Maybe there's a happy medium between the kind of innovation that we saw during the Industrial Revolution and workplace death. Just a thought.
And I couldn't actually believe, the cloth industry, everything. We brought so many inventions to the UK. Fair enough, like, there's an argument that we stole some things off the Indians. I get that. But at the end of the day, we were able to capitalise it and bring it to the mass, yeah? And that's what we were excelled in. So we've got the Industrial Revolution. We've got the sports that I've just mentioned to you. The suit, Savile Row. The suit that everyone wears in this, in this day and age. It's the principal business. The principal business attire, yeah, that everyone wears every single day. That is an English-made design.
What would you change about Britain?
In policy, the same as, the reform message is we need to tighten up these border controls. They're the cause of all the other ills of the country. The housing, the cost of living, and everything else that people are complaining about is the main cause. The amount of people here.
Well, I've been a member of the Tory party for a long while, big Thatcher supporter when I was younger, a long while ago. And I think the Tories have moved to kind of more woke policies, kind of more left-wing policies. And I started...
Define woke. I super hope that Ed asks him to define woke, or just ask what he means by woke. Also, what's left-wing about the Conservative Party's policy platform? Anti-trade union laws, tax cuts. What have they taken into public ownership, please, Mr. Reform UK man? What extra rights do workers now have after 14 years of Conservative government? The NHS was reduced in funding from every year from 2010 till 2019 as a percentage of GDP.
Started looking around for an alternative, finally quit the Tory party about a year ago now.
What are the woke policies that the Tories have turned to?
Well, they've just ignored most normal people's concerns regarding immigration. They're not having an honest debate about that. I think they've allowed certain institutions to be captured by... So, for example, just yesterday, and this is obviously under the Labour government now, but just yesterday it was reported that the Foreign Office were flying the bisexual flag. With all the problems we've got in the world, the Foreign Office choose to fly that flag.
Mate, you were asked to name the policies you disliked. The first thing you said was immigration, and then the second thing you said was, I have to leave the Conservative Party because we now have a bisexual flag hanging from somewhere. So your response is to then say, well, we've got real problems. If we did have real problems, you've not articulated them, because one of the biggest problems that you found with the Conservative Party's governance was the fact that they had pride flags. You don't have any real problems. Get some real problems, and you have the temerity to lecture other people about not caring about real problems, whilst caring about something that clearly is not a real problem.
There's too many people coming to the country and the services can't take it. You know, this whole issue as well, I work in the wastewater sector, the whole issue with sewage overflows, and we have sewage overflows going into rivers. It's because the networks can't take the amount of people that are coming onto the grid.
It's because the private companies haven't invested. Every year, population increased in the run-up to the privatisation of the water companies. The regional water boards didn't just stop investing. Yeah, it's weird how these people think that population increase is bad when it's from a birth rate, but when it's from migration, suddenly it's a bad thing. But even then, when they were in public ownership, as the population increased, they kept investing. You know, we've had a new reservoir in this country since 1995. Weird that. It's weird how you privatised its natural monopoly, put it into the hands of private water companies who have no incentive to invest because they can just reap more out of extra bills if there are sewage overflows. Weird how that all started happening as soon as they got privatised.
For me, personally, in my opinion, any new development should finance their own in-house sewage treatment works, but it's all blamed on the sewage.
Yeah, don't blame the private water companies. Don't blame them. Don't blame United Utilities for failing to invest. No new reservoir since 1995 tells you these people do not want to invest. And what her solution is? Don't get the private water companies to do it. That's way outside their remit. Get new developments to do their own sewage work.
On the water companies, and we're scapegoating the water companies because of this, and it's not fair on the water.
Everyone who watches this, who's considering voting for Reform UK, just know that the other people who also like Reform UK defend the private water companies. Won't somebody please think of the private water companies? They're being unfairly maligned for all of the shit they're putting in the water.
Apart from immigration, which of Reform's policies are you particularly pleased with?
Well, I just think UKIP is the answer to so many things. I mean, the LBGQ, whatever it is, that needs to be controlled. I mean, every company is struggling at the moment, and there's so many rules and regulations. We voted to come out of the European Union, Common Market in my day, and we haven't done anything. We're still abiding by all the rules. I mean, and as for this fallacy of the, shall we say, the world collapsing because of all the pollution. Well, the world has spent its life changing. It's not it's difficult to explain. I can understand what people think it is.
Yeah, it is difficult to explain because you haven't got a clue what you're talking about. I'll say it for the 1000th time. These people have no real problems. They have no real problems. Outside of immigration, which is something that Reform UK are definitely in touch with the UK on. Every poll shows that people are concerned about immigration. What are the other things? LGBTQ needs to be controlled. There are so many EU laws that we've inherited that we keep on the books. No one cares about that either. And then on top of that, he just goes, well, also this thing where people say pollution's bad, but world changes anyway. We're an incredibly green country. As a country, we absolutely love green policy. It showed in every single poll. They have no problems, no real problems. Find me a singular Reform UK voter who actually thinks that Reform UK have a policy to solve their real problems.
Wrong.
So when I went to university, so I've got 3 degrees. I work in the professional industry. I do very well. I've worked and grafted hard. Yeah, fair enough. I've got some generational wealth.
Ah, there you go. There you go. At least she admits it. At least she's not trying to pretend that she's self-made. But as soon as they go, yeah, like, I've got this good career. I work in the private water industry. And of course I have some generational wealth. I'm like, oh, okay, well then there you go. You don't know the struggles of everybody else, do you? They always say they've worked hard and then turns out it's mummy and daddy's money in the end.
Which people say is white privilege. In white privilege, mate, yeah. It is my father's, yeah.
No, it's class privilege. When we say white privilege, like the concept of white privilege in like leftist spaces is about societal privilege. It's about the fact that you get treated different in a society, in a white majority society, if you're white rather than black. That's about social privilege, not economic privilege. If you've got a rich parents, that's class privilege. That's class privilege, nothing to do with whether you're white or not. Rich black kids have class privilege. Rich Asian kids have class privilege, just the way you if you've got rich parents.
Working hard, grafting on the farms, handing the wealth down, because my family have been here for generations. It's not white privilege, it's generational wealth. Yeah, I've had a bit of help.
It's not white privilege, it's generational wealth. It doesn't make it any different in terms of the fact that you don't have it as hard as other people do. When it comes to economics, this is a broad class problem. Class privilege is economic privilege. When it comes to social privilege, when it comes to things like race, for example, that's completely different. Saying her economic privilege comes from her being white and native, which is why she's using the term white privilege. It's a weird argument that allows her to dismiss claims of being an elite whilst also keeping her generational wealth. Well, that's exactly what the class collaborationist ideology is about. Like, class collaborationism is specifically by saying, well, we should be economically prioritised because we are the dominant ethnic group. Anything that might divide those of the dominant ethnic group along class or economic lines undermines the nation state. It undermines us as an ethnic group. So if you make those criticisms, you are criticising our ethnicity rather than criticising the class disparity. That is how class collaborationism is there as a roadblock. It's the bulwark against class consciousness.
I could have had more help. I've had something trickle fed to me, but I have worked and grafted hard. It's not fucking white privilege. Sorry, I've just sworn it.
You can swear.
But I'm getting passionate about this now. It's not white privilege. It's me working and having generational
Yeah, it's class privilege. There you go. I've said it 1,000 times.
wealth, and just so happens that white Caucasian people have lived here and are the ethnic group. If I go to Ancestry DNA, yeah, and I get my DNA done, it tells me exactly what my DNA is, right? So it's not racist to say. It's not racist to say, oh, the ethnic culture or the ethnic diversity, like racial profile in this country. It's Caucasian, because if I go on Ancestry DNA, it tells me what my DNA is. It tells me whether I'm Scottish or English.
Which Christian values would you like to see more of in this country?
I believe the unselfishness that it brings. So the fact that you would get up early, you go to church. I also think that we miss the community side. So back in the days, it used to be that neighbours all knew each other. You knew that if you were a kid and you played up...
Literally, it's just fucking nostalgia, bae. It's just back in my day, things were better. Yeah, do you know what destroyed the community? You know what made you not trust your neighbours and stop being selfless? Fucking neoliberalism. The kind of Hayekian values and objectivist values, the Randian values that were being extolled by Rupert Lowe on stage and just the other clip that we watched. It's exactly those values of greed being good that made this country selfish. And you're joining a political party whose political position is explicitly around free market neoliberal capitalism, which made us more selfish and more greedy. Maybe you'd have a community if these communities got invested in by the state, which they say they don't want to do, and they praise Thatcher, who was the one that destroyed those communities by taking away the jobs by privatising the industries.
You knew that you were going to see the neighbours at church, so your parents knew our parents, and you'd find, I think you're more well behaved, you know, because you all knew each other, and if there was any problems, any disrespect, you could just sort it at church. But now no one knows each other, no one really respects each other.
I mean, you don't have to go to church to sort things. No one knows each other because we've been atomized as a society, because we just completely marketized everything. We turned everything into a market. We shredded our local communities by removing funding from councils, by privatizing community interests. You're literally describing the problem of neoliberalism. Church is not the problem.
And it's sad. It's more because it's sad. It's not because there's a hate for it. It's just I think you've lost the whole sense of community and family. And a lot of people are probably stressed and have hate for each other because they just don't know each other rather than...
I mean, I agree. I think it's what's so tilting. Like, the right rails against the elites. They rail against, like, global corporations. They rail against the taking over of our culture, of the destruction of community, the atomization of society. They all see that it's happening. They all correctly diagnose the problem. And yet all of their solutions are do all of the things that caused it. What caused the corporations to come here and subsume our small businesses? It was neoliberalism, it was deregulation. What happened to destroying our communities? It was defunding councils and it was privatising all of our community areas and the destruction of third places. What happened to our streets? They all became these places that were used solely for cars. We gave up all of our city space, all for cars. And yet they're mad at big government, they're mad at regulation, and they're mad at the war on motorists. Literally all of the things that they are diagnosing as the problem were caused by the kind of economic ideology that these people support. And I guess it's mostly because, as I mentioned before, lots of the people at the Reform UK conference don't care about the economy. People at the Reform UK conference didn't care about the economic stuff that Rupert Lowe was talking about in the speech that we saw. They cheered the culture war stuff. They really are into the culture war. But they don't actually agree with the economics of the Farages of this world. They don't want Singapore on Thames. They don't want that. That's why Reform UK didn't run on a Singapore-on-Thames platform. They ran on having 50% state ownership of new infrastructure because they know that's what their voters actually want. They want the steelworks back. They want the collieries open. They want jobs back in their communities that were stripped away by the Thatcherite economic ideology that Reform UK bigwigs actually support and like. The kind of deregulation that caused massive corporations to subsume so much of our local economies, the localism that used to underpin, as he rightly points out, your local shops, your local community, that you would go, you'd know your local butcher, you'd know your local corner shop owner, you'd know your local bakery, you'd know your local fish and chip shop. You don't know these anythings anymore because they're all massive fucking mega chains staffed by people who hate their jobs. Because we made our country the hotbed of deregulation to allow corporations to swoop in and destroy everything. Our culture isn't being destroyed by immigrants coming here, it's being destroyed by Americanization. Because we sold out all of our local communities to gigantic American megacorporations because we didn't want to regulate them away because that went against the market fundamentalist ideology of Thatcherism. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for memberships. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.